Ready? All right, if you would turn to the book of 1 Samuel. We're in chapter 4, where we've been studying the life of Samuel. Kind of did this backwards. We did the life of Saul a few months ago and decided to go back and look at Samuel. And so we're not going to go much further. I think chapter 7 will probably be as far as we go in this study. That gets us back to where we started with the other study. If those that are listening, if you want to hear that other study on Israel, it's titled Israel Wants a King, you can find it on our YouTube page or on our sermon audio page. I think everything that was on Facebook is probably already gone by now. They delete everything after 30 days now. So, and if you remember, we've been through most of the telling of Samuel's early life, from before his birth and after, and while he's a child, and his growing up growing up with Eli, the priest. Remember, Eli's two sons are also priests, and they're very wicked men. And the Lord has already told Eli and Samuel both, he's prophesied to them that Eli and his sons are eventually going to die. His two sons are going to die. The prophecy was that his two sons are going to die on the same day. We'll see that in this chapter. And we'll also see the death of Eli in this chapter also. It falls right shortly after his two sons. And so the line of priest, as far as Eli's line, is going to come to a stop. It'll be the end of it. And Samuel, of course, we don't hear much about the high priest after Eli for a time, for several chapters, and we won't. In this study, we won't get that far. We did in the other study. But there was a high priest, but Samuel was he was the main prophet, it appears, in Israel in that day, and was also a priest. He did priestly functions. We see that in the life of Saul and in the life of David's early life too. And then he was also a judge, and the scripture tells us he was the last judge of Israel, at the last earthly judge, I guess I should say. And he was also the first prophet. So the New Testament bears all that out. Now, tonight, Israel is fighting with the Philistines again. This goes on and on from most of their history. If you remember, if you've been through and studied Samson, you know, they were the Palestinians, or the Philistines, controlled Israel at that time. There came a time where after Samson, Israel kind of broke free from them and were on their own for a time. And it's this way back and forth all throughout Israel's history. When they're following the Lord, they're prosperous and they're doing good. And then they get prosperous and get to doing good, and then they get to going the other way and following the false gods and not doing so good and all that, not following the Lord. And the Lord sends in, whether it's Philistines or the Babylonians or Assyrians or whoever, he sends somebody else in and overthrows them. And the Philistines, they never really fully take over like Babylon did, and Assyria, and I guess you say Assyria too. They never just went in and just wiped out a bunch of people. Their armies fought, but if you remember Nebuchadnezzar, when he came in, he didn't care who they were. He just killed people. and took them into captivity. The Assyrians did the same thing with the northern kingdom. The Philistines don't do that. They leave them in their land, but they still cause them problems. We won't get to it tonight. In the next chapter, we will see where the Ark of the Covenant is stolen in battle by the Philistines. That's another popular Sunday school story. If you grew up in Sunday school, you'll remember that story. We'll get to that when we'll get to that next time. So in 1 Samuel chapter 4, verse 1, let's start there. The word of Samuel came to all Israel. Now this is not just any word. This is him prophesying. That's what this is talking about. If you go back in verse 21 of the last chapter, he says, "And the Lord appeared again in Shiloh, for the Lord revealed himself to Samuel in Shiloh by the word of the Lord." So the Lord is coming to Samuel now. You notice he's not going to Eli. He's done with Eli. He's done with Eli's sons. They've all done wickedly, and Eli has not done anything about it. And so he's turned to Samuel now. And the word of Samuel came to all Israel. Now Israel went out against the Philistines to battle and pitched beside Ebenezer, and the Philistines pitched at Aphek, and the Philistines put themselves in array against Israel, and when they joined battle, Israel was smitten before the Philistines, and they slew of the army in the field about 4,000 men. And we think, boy, that's a lot of men, 4,000. Well, it's really not compared to what's going to happen later in this chapter. So Israel, their armies defeated, it says, in battle, smitten. And when the people were come into the camp, the elders of Israel said, "Wherefore hath the Lord smitten us today before the Philistines?" They don't get it. And this continues on throughout Israel's history. They think that the Lord is going to defend them at every time they go to battle, no matter if they're staying true to him or not. They come to expect it. And this is one of those cases where the Lord's had enough, and he's going to teach them a lesson. He's basically just pulled his hand back and let the Philistines defeat them in battle. And Israel, they don't get it. They don't understand that they're the ones that are in the wrong and not the Philistines. The Philistines are a heathen nation. They don't even worship the same God. Wherefore hath the Lord smitten us today before the Philistines? Let us fetch the ark of the covenant of the Lord out of Shiloh unto us, that when it comes among us, it may save us out of the hand of our enemies. Now you notice there, they've turned the Ark of the Covenant into an idol. That's what they've done. It says, when it cometh among us, it may save us. Not the Lord, but the Ark of the Covenant. Now, granted, the Ark of the Covenant is a representation of the Lord. That's where he would come down at times and meet with the high priest on the mercy seat on that, and in between the cherubims that were on top of it. But that's not what they're doing here. And this is not the first time. They've used it. It's gone before them in battle before, and the Lord has saved them. But it was the Lord that saved them. And if you remember Joshua, when they first come into the land, oftentimes the Lord would tell him, take the Ark of the Covenant out with the priest and, do whatever the Lord told him to do. And the Lord would help them win the battle. He'd cause them to win it. So that's what they're expecting this time. They think, well, we'll bring the Ark of the Covenant out, and it'll be the reason we win the battle. Not the Lord, but the Ark. So the people sent to Shiloh, that they might bring from thence the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord of hosts, which dwelleth between the cherubims. And the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were there with the ark of the covenant of God. Now you notice there's no struggle here. These two men let them take it. Matter of fact, they help them take it. They go to the battle themselves with the ark. They're the priest. They've got to be the ones to carry it. That was the law. And when the ark of the covenant of the Lord came into the camp, all Israel shouted with a great joy, so that the earth rang again. They were jubilant. They here the ark of the covenant is in the camp of the army of Israel. They're ready to go to battle. They can whip anybody now. When the Philistines heard the noise of the shout, they said, "What meaneth the noise of this great shout in the camp of the Hebrews?" And they understood that the ark of the Lord was coming to the camp. And the Philistines were afraid. They knew about the ark of the Lord. They'd seen it work before. They had heard stories of what had happened to the other Canaanite nations. They had heard about the Egyptians. And the Philistines were afraid, for they said, "God is come into the camp." And they said, "Woe unto us, for there hath not been such a thing heretofore." So up until this point, in this battle anyway, they have not seen the Ark of the Covenant come into the camp of the Hebrews, and they've not seen the Hebrews this jubilant and this excited and this feisty to fight now. Woe unto us, it says. They were concerned, greatly concerned. Now the God of Israel is in their camp. It appears the Philistines knew that, but Israel didn't know that, did they? Israel, all they knew was that they had the Ark of the Covenant, and it was going to save them. The Philistines were scared of the God of Israel. They'd seen him work before. Woe unto us, who shall deliver us out of the hand of these mighty gods? These are the gods that smote the Egyptians with all the plagues in the wilderness. Now watch what their commanders tell them. Be strong and quit yourselves like men. Be strong. It gives them a motivational speech, basically. Be strong and quit yourselves like men. In other words, behave yourselves like men. Build up some courage. He's building up some courage in these Philistine troops. O you Philistines, that ye be not servants unto the Hebrews as they have been to you. Quit yourselves like men and fight. So again, the Philistine commanders are giving them a boost, a morale boost, if you will. We're not going to be servants to them like they've been servants to us. Verse 10, and the Philistines fought, and Israel was smitten, and they fled every man into his tent, and there was a very great slaughter. For there fell of Israel 30,000 footmen. 30,000 men, 30,000 footmen. We don't know, did they have cavalry? Did they have archers? I have no idea. It doesn't tell us it, but that's just the footmen that fell. 30,000. It's a lot more than the 7,000 that had fell before. And the ark of God was taken, and the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were slain. So there's the end of the prophecy for those two men, those two brothers. God has slain them. The Ark of the Covenant was taken. It was stolen. By who? By the Philistines. We'll see in the next chapter they take it and place it next to their god Dagon. And I don't want to get too far into the story. We'll see that next time. It doesn't turn out good for the Philistines. And there ran a man of Benjamin out of the army, and came to Shiloh the same day with his clothes rent, and with earth upon his head. And when he came, lo, Eli sat upon a seat by the wayside watching, for his heart trembled for the ark of God. And when the man came into the city and told it, all the city cried out. So Eli, who is now a very old man, is sitting out by the, it says by the wayside, by the main, whether it was the gate or the main road that come into the city. He was concerned about the ark of God, as well he should have been. Remember, he's the high priest. And his two sons, who he knows are wicked, are the ones that have taken it out at the request of the elders of the camp. And Eli, who, other than the fact that he would not stand up to his sons, has been was a pretty good priest. Samuel's parents entrusted him to teach their son in the ways of a prophet and a priest, and he has done a fine job of that. But he didn't reprimand his sons when they did wrong in the land with the citizens there. And so he's got a guilty conscience, is what we call it. He's concerned that the ark of God something's going to happen to it while it's out there in battle. And it has. His worries come true. And when Eli heard the noise of the crying, he said, "What meaneth the noise of this tumult?" And the man came in hastily and told Eli. Now Eli was 98 years old. Very old man, even in their day, that was an old man. And his eyes were dim, that he could not see. And the man said unto Eli, "I am he that came out of the army, and I fled today out of the army." And he said, What is there done, my son?" And the messenger answered and said, "Israel is fled before the Philistines, and there hath been also a great slaughter among the people. And thy two sons also, Hophni and Phinehas, are dead, and the ark of God is taken." It's been captured. And it came to pass, when he had made mention of the ark of God, that he fell from off the seat backward by the side of the gate, and his neck brake, and he died. For he was an old man and heavy, and he had judged Israel 40 years. So Eli, notice he didn't fall off of his chair. The man told him about his sons first. That wasn't his main concern. The main concern was the ark of God. And now it's been stolen by their bitter enemy, the Philistines. They have no idea what they're going to do with it. In their day and time, an invading army stole something like that from you, something that is overlaid with gold. They're liable to melt it down, aren't they, and make whatever they wanted out of it. But that's not what they did. And you have to. I would say the Lord is the one that kept them from doing that, because that would have been a common practice in their day. And his daughter, Eli's daughter-in-law, Phinehas' wife, was with child, near to be delivered. And when she heard the tidings that the ark of God was taken, and that her father-in-law and her husband were dead, she bowed herself and travailed, for her pains came upon her. So she's in a lot of grief, and that's normal. A woman who is that close to having her child, and you have all of a sudden your father-in-law and your husband are killed. And the way it talks here, it sounds like she was already pretty close to her delivery date anyway. So she goes into labor, and about the time of her death, the women that stood by her said unto her, "Fear not, for thou hast borne a son." But she answered not, neither did she regard it. So she birthed the baby, and that was it. She's gone now. What about his son, far as I know, there's no other mention of him after this. Certainly, with his grandfather and his father and his uncle all gone, he's not going to be able to be raised up in the priesthood, is he? And she named the child Ichabod, saying, the glory is departed from Israel. What a name. How would you like to have that name? The glory is departed. People used to name their kids Ichabod. It was always, when you read that in history, you often wonder what people were thinking when they named their people were used to. It was a common thing to name your children Bible names, and that's fine if you name them after somebody good in the Bible. But you don't want to name your daughter Jezebel, do you? Or Ichabod. A son named Ichabod. That's not a very good name to be naming a child. Because the glory was departed from Israel, because the ark of God was taken, and because of her father-in-law and her husband. And she said, the glory is departed from Israel, for the ark of God is taken. Again, it seems as though she's got the same idea as Eli did. She's more concerned that the ark of God is gone than she was that her husband and her brother-in-law and father-in-law are gone now. Again, from the very start of this, back at the very start of this battle, the Israel, again, is turned to the Ark of the Covenant like it's an idol. They've turned it into an idol. They're worshiping it more than they are God. And you notice this woman, Eli's daughter-in-law, and Eli himself were more concerned with the Ark of God than they were their own family. Now, people will say that, well, this is because this is where God met with his people in that day, and yeah, I get that. But still, they had turned it into an idol. And you see that from now on throughout the rest of Israel's story in the Old Testament. The things of God, the things in the temple, whether it was the Ark of the Covenant, or it was the temple itself, or it was all the furnishings of the temple, for the most part, except for a very few times, other than when David was king and Solomon was king, and in a few after that, those things become idols. They're not too concerned about what God thinks. They're more concerned with keeping those things up and making sure they're taken care of. Again, next time we'll get into chapter 5, and we'll see what happens to the ark. And we'll see. Chapter 5 is kind of short. We might go a little bit into chapter 6 too next time. We'll see. So that's all we have for tonight.